Hey, what is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, or to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Ivy. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we are going to be talking about the 11 books that I read in February. I'm sorry if you can hear my dog. Pretty much anytime I start filming, he needs to get up and kind of move around, so you can probably hear his little pitter patter on the floor. We're going to be talking about the 11 books that I read in February. That is a lot for me, like a lot, and honestly it's all because of audiobooks. I am such an audiobook girly. So I do have like a couple of stats. I'm not a big stat person, but I do like to do like a genre breakdown. So we had 3 romance books, 3 thrillers, 3 general fiction / literary fiction. I'm honestly not really sure what the difference is. And then 2 autobiographies and 1 DNF. We actually had a couple more DNFs, but I didn't really put them in this video because I didn't read very far into them, and they were all from my read it or unhaul it list. Those I feel like I'm a little bit quicker to DNF than other books just because they are on like my read it or unhaul it list. So I'm just gonna save those for like the recap video for that, and then only talk about like the other DNF. The first book that I read was The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This follows our main character Clementine after she just lost her aunt, who she was super close with. They took like a trip every single summer together. Her aunt left her an apartment, and her aunt told her like her whole life that this apartment had like a certain type of magic to it and that it could go in the past. Basically, she comes home one day and her apartment is 7 years in the past. There's this guy in her apartment and it's 7 years in the past. It's just like a magical realism, like esque romance. Obviously this book is super popular and it's a fan fave for her, I feel like. I really did enjoy this book. I really liked Clementine and our main male character's dynamic. I really liked Clementine's dynamic with her friends. I liked the work aspect of the book, and there's also like a mini plot twist at the end of this book, and maybe I didn't see it coming because I didn't think there was going to be a plot twist in it, but the plot twist got me. My jaw was literally on the floor. I'm sure so many people were like, that wasn't a plot twist, like you should have saw that coming, but I did not see it coming. I don't really rate books. I have a really hard time rating them. I only pretty much rate them if I'm writing a review, because on Fable you have to rate the book to write a review. But I would definitely recommend this if you haven't picked it up yet. It was really good. Then I read The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. This is also on my read it or unhaul it list. I've just had it for a long time. As you can see, my dog has gotten a hold of it 1 or 2 times. This is following Gabriel, who is I think he's like a psychiatrist or a therapist, something along those lines, and he goes to an inpatient facility where this woman named Alicia is being kept. She basically was like a very normal, regular person and killed her husband one night and then never spoke another word after that. She's being held in like a psychiatric facility instead of prison, and Gabriel is going there to kind of try to like get her to talk, like see like why what happened. Obviously this book was super popular a couple years ago, and I feel like everyone said that the actual plot was kind of boring, the actual book was kind of boring, but like the plot twist was so good. And I actually had kind of the opposite experience. I really enjoyed the plot of it. I enjoyed like looking back into Alicia's life. I think she wrote like a diary or something, and I enjoyed that part. I really did not enjoy the plot twist. It was one of those plot twists where I felt like it was so kind of unrealistic that I was just like, what? I just like didn't honestly love the plot twist, and this wasn't my favorite thriller ever. I don't think I'll probably read anything else by him just because I feel like this is like the fan favorite by him, and it wasn't my favorite. Okay, I had to let my dog out, so I apologize if the lighting or the angle is different. I can't really tell. The next book that I read is Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. This is another thriller book. It was super popular a couple years ago. I've had it for a long time and just never read it. We're following a couple, Adam and Amelia. I was like, I don't remember their names. Adam and Amelia, and Adam has this, I don't know if it would be considered like I guess it would be a disability. He has this disability where he can see, but he doesn't have any like facial recognition. Like he can't recognize facial features on people's faces, so everybody kind of just looks the same to him. And he is a screenwriter, and then Amelia is his wife, and she just won this like free trip to this Airbnb thing in like the middle of nowhere. You can tell from the very beginning but like that this couple is not getting along, and we don't really know why. And basically like sinister things are happening, like, you know, very thriller-esque plot. The plot twist in this book did get me. I feel like this one has a similar reputation to The Silent Patient, that the plot twist is just like absolutely insane. And you guys, this is probably the craziest plot twist I've ever read, or it just like got me so well. I think because the twist in this book literally changes like your perspective on every other part of the book that you've read. To be able to do that and still have the book make sense, I feel like is really, really impressive. I would definitely recommend this if you're looking for a thriller book. I definitely think that if I want like a quick thriller book, that she's gonna be like my new go-to author. Then I decided to pick up The Paper Palace by Miranda Coley Heller. This is a Reese's Book Club pick. I thought the cover was really pretty. I thrifted it a while ago. From the inside flap, I just kind of assumed that it was like a summer-esque book about a affair between these childhood best friends, and I kind of just thought that that's what it was, and it was going to be like a fun family drama summer book. When I tell you guys, this book was so much more. It is about, there is an affair in it. We start out and we're following our main character, Elle, and basically she wakes up. We know that she cheated on her husband the night before with her childhood best friend, and we're following kind of like two timelines, 24 hours post cheating, like those next 24 hours, and then we're also following like her entire life from childhood to how we got to her cheating on her husband. And this book was honestly so good. I wish that this book like had more hype. I know it's a Reese's Book Club pick and I have like seen it places, but I don't really feel like I hear people talk about it, and I didn't even really hear people talk about it when it came out because it is a couple years old. But we just follow our main character Elle through kind of like coming of age from when she's a very young girl to her adulthood. I just felt so attached. My cats are playing right now and they don't typically get this wound, and it's actually so cute. I just was so attached to our main character. I feel like there's like an underlying message of childhood, or not childhood trauma, more like generational trauma, and how that can really affect the way that you raise your kids and the way that your kids process and go about things. I don't know. I just like honestly really, really enjoyed this book. It was probably one of my favorite books that I read this month. I think this, The 7-Year Slip, and then another one that we're going to talk about were probably my top 3. I didn't really have many books at all in January that I liked, so I was like so happy to have books this month that I really liked. But I would 100% recommend this. I will say that there is a lot of discussion of childhood sexual assault. So if you think that's going to be triggering to you, I would definitely proceed with caution, because it is definitely a reoccurring theme in the book. Really, really liked this book. I would definitely recommend it. The more I think about it, the more I like it. Then I read The Bright Years by Sarah Dumas. I got a skip the line copy from my Libby, so I was like, okay, well I have to read this because it's like everybody's favorite book. I did like it, but I just fear it was kind of a victim of my expectations. Not because it was bad at all, just because I feel like everyone was like, I sobbed through this book was life-changing, and like I thought it was good, but I didn't necessarily connect to it like a lot of other people do. We're following like multi-generations. Like we start out and we see our main character Ryan as a little boy and his mom. Then we kind of switch to when Ryan's an adult and he meets his wife, and then we follow his wife and eventually his daughter until we get to the end of the book. I feel like that's not a great way to explain it, but I don't really know how else to explain it. I do want to say, I should have said this in the beginning of the video, I know some people think trigger warnings are spoilery, but I have come to find this month that I really need to look up trigger warnings, so I'm gonna have all of the trigger warnings for these books listed in the description box, because there is something that's like very, very heavily talked about in this book that if you would like just not want to read about it, I would want to know that going in. Honestly, I think my biggest qualm with this book is that our main character Ryan just really ticked me off through the entire thing. I just had very little empathy for him. Not that I didn't have empathy for him, I did have empathy for him, but it's like one of those situations where you understand why a person's behaving the way that they're behaving, but it's not an excuse. I just needed someone to go up to Ryan and smack him across the head. Like, he just really bothered me. And I was also reading this at the same time I was reading another book, which we're going to talk about here soon, where all of the men in that book were infuriating, and I just could not read another book about like immature, infuriating men who like ruin their life and can't take responsibility for that. I think the way that she did like the multi-generational storyline was done really well. We focus a lot on Ryan's mom, Ryan's wife, and then Ryan's daughter, and I really liked the kind of like 3 generations of women and just like their connection with each other and the relationships they had with each other and how they supported each other. That I honestly did really like, and I do think that the writing style was very good. There's one particular storyline that happens pretty early on into the book. Some of the quotes that were written about that like really got me. Like, the quotes were done very well in this book, and I do think I want to give her, she has a book coming out I believe in May called, I don't think it's called The Bright Side, because this one's called The Bright Years, maybe like The Burning Side or something. I'll insert a picture of it. I do think I want to give that book a shot, like if my library gets a copy of it, because I did really enjoy her writing style. I just think that this book, along with the other books I was currently reading, I just like couldn't deal with Ryan. Speaking of the other book I was reading, I also read The Girls That Grew Big. This is following 3 teen moms. We're following Simone, who I believe is 21, and she has 5-year-old twins. And then we're following, why can I not remember any of their names? I only remember Simone's name because she was the only one I liked. Let me look up their names. Adela, who is recently pregnant, who basically got like shipped to live with her grandma in Florida. And then Emery, who I believe her kid is like 8 months old. I think Emery is 17 and Adela is 16, something like that. And we're basically following these girls, and they kind of have like a pact. I don't want to say a pact because I feel like that's giving like the pregnancy pact from Lifetime, but they have like an inner support system between them and other women in their community who are also teen moms or are experiencing teen pregnancy, and they kind of are just there to like support each other because the town is not going to do that for them. I wanted to read this book because of Rachel Catherine's review of it. I will link her video down below if you want to hear someone else's opinion on it. She really made me want to read it, but I just think that I maybe didn't really know what I was going into. I will also say that like this book was infuriating. I think it was supposed to be. Like, the sexism and the racism was supposed to infuriate you, but I just like I wanted some escapism, and there is like one scene in this book that was literally making me homicidal because it was so bad. It was supposed to make you feel that way, but like it was so bad. I also just feel like this stuff does happen in real life, so sometimes I just have a hard time reading about it. But that all being said, that doesn't mean it's a bad book. That means like I feel like it's objectively a good book. Like, it's really taking something that happens in real life and giving you a perspective on it that maybe you didn't already have. But then there was also some like really weird, unrealistic things that happened in this book that I just found very confusing. There's like this whole storyline with an orca in Florida that like really took me out of the book. I was so confused. I literally was like, what is going on? And then I also just kind of felt like some of the writing in this book wasn't my favorite. Our one character, Emery, was an idiot. Like, she made so many dumb decisions. You never really saw her working hard towards like school or education, but somehow she was like supposed to be this genius who was going to get into Stanford, and like all we saw her do was act like an idiot. So I was just like confused about that. Then the orca thing kind of threw me off. And while there was like character development throughout the story, I just feel like our one character, Simone, was the only one that was likable and the only one who I truly felt like loved her children and represented being a mom. And like, none of these girls are going to be perfect moms because obviously they are children and they have basically zero support. I just feel like I heard a lot of people say about this book about how it's like such a good representation of how you would do anything for your children, and I just felt like some of the other mothers were portrayed like they just like straight up didn't care about their kids. I don't know. I really don't know how I feel about this book. Even like now thinking back at it, reading it probably like over 2 weeks ago, I still don't really know how to feel about it. Then we had my DNF of the month, which was Business or Pleasure by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This is 100% a me issue. As you will see when I talk about these books and some of the books that I've read in March so far, I like need to do a little bit more research into a book before I pick it up. This book was given to me by someone who unhauled it. They didn't want it, they didn't like it, they didn't finish it. Probably should have been my first sign. I personally would probably recommend this if you think that the storyline isn't going to bother you. This particular trope is just not for me. Basically, we're following Chandler and Finn. Chandler is a ghostwriter and she typically works on celebrity memoirs, and then Finn is think like 90210, famous when he was a kid, now as an adult. He is going to be writing a memoir and she is going to be his ghostwriter for it, and they basically like make this pact where Chandler is going to like teach Finn how to have sex. That is just like one of my least favorite tropes in the entire world, because one, I just find it to be like wildly unrealistic. Like is anyone doing that? I mean, I don't want to know, but this is like the same vibe as the kiss quotient, and I DNF'd that for similar reasons. One, I'm not the biggest fan of spice, so a book that the plot is surrounded around spice like probably isn't for me. And two, I just find the storyline to like not be my favorite. I DNF'd this solely because of not thinking I would like it, but I will say the parts that I read, like there was a scene in this where I was literally laughing out loud. It was so funny and it was written so well. It was literally hilarious. So if you don't think that that's like storyline is something that like you would dislike, I do think that this is probably a pretty good romance book, because the parts that I did read were written very well. It just isn't the storyline for me, unfortunately. Then I read Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. Again, another thriller book that I thrifted, that I've had for forever, like everyone and their mother has read. This is the same author as None of This Is True. I really liked that thriller book. I thought it was really good. It was really entertaining. I really enjoyed it. I wanted to know what was going to happen. I will say that her writing is very bingeable. Like you just can keep reading and keep reading and keep reading. I never told you what this book was about. I apologize. This book, we're following Laurel, and we're coming up, I believe, on like the 10-year anniversary of when her daughter Ellie went missing. Basically, Ellie went to school one day. She left school and she was never seen again. That happened 10 years ago, and then we're following Laurel, and they have finally found Ellie's body or parts of her remains. So Laurel really like kind of takes this as a sign that she needs to kind of start not moving on, because obviously like you can't really move on from something like that, but not letting her life continue to suffer because of what has happened in the past. She really hasn't like lived for the past 10 years. So she takes like this closure as a sign that she needs to kind of start living with this and not like letting it kind of eat her up. So she ends up meeting this guy, and this guy has these 2 daughters, and his younger daughter Poppy reminds her so much of Ellie that it's like creepy. And we kind of just like follow the storyline from there. I will say, I predicted what was going to happen. As soon as we met our full cast of characters, I was like, oh, this is what happened. And it was literally exactly what happened. I'm not entirely sure if you were supposed to know that. The book was still relatively creepy and thrilling, even though I knew what was happening and I knew the twist that was coming. So I kind of wonder if maybe the reader is supposed to know what's going on. I'm honestly not really sure. I will say that a lot of people say that this book makes them feel icky. It is kind of an icky thing that happens. Like the thrilling-esque part of this book is pretty icky. Also, if you read thrillers for a plot twist, definitely would not read this one. I also just thought that the little girl in this book was like wildly creepy, and I don't think she was supposed to be. Unless it was supposed to be like a red herring throughout the book. But I don't think she was supposed to be a creepy character, but she was so creepy. Overall, I just don't think I would really recommend this if you want a thriller. I just think there's better thrillers out there. I think there's better Lisa Jewell out there. Then I read my favorite book of the month, which was Dolly All the Time by Annabelle Monaghan. This is Annabelle Monaghan's new book. I absolutely love her. You guys know I love her. My favorite by her is Summer Romance, and I can confidently say that this came very close to Summer Romance. I think if I were to reread them, I would really have to think about which one I enjoyed better. So we're following our main character, Dolly, and Dolly lives in Boston with her 13 or 14-year-old son. She's a single mom, and they usually go back to their little beach town in Rhode Island for like 1 week of the summer. She's an elementary school teacher, so she has summers off. This summer, something like happened to her childhood home, so she goes back for the entire summer to kind of help her dad fix up the house, work at his business, and he's also the full-time caregiver for her adult brother. So just to kind of help her dad. And then we also have our other character, Stuart. And Stuart is the son of basically like the rich family in town, like the old money family in town. Like the town was named after them. They own most of the land. They have like buku bucks. And he is also back for the summer but works from Boston. We basically have like a kind of random thing happen to these two characters that makes people believe that they're in a relationship. And Stuart basically gives her this proposition that like he really needs to put on like a certain type of look for a promotion, and one of those things is being that like he has other things in life that he takes seriously that aren't his job, like relationship and like settling down. So they start like this fake dating kind of thing. I was kind of nervous for it, I'm not gonna lie, because I just find that fake dating is like very hard to pull off if it's not like a YA, Laura Jean, Peter Kavinsky kind of situation, because I just think most of the time it feels very unbelievable. I actually thought that this was done really well and it felt super, super believable. The romance in this book, so cute. She just writes like the sweetest, cutest romances. I always believe that the couple's in love. I always believe that like sometimes you read a romance book and you're like, would these people like actually like each other? Like I just feel like she writes couples so well. It's so believable that they would actually get along and make sense in real life. And then she also just always has such good underlying messages in her books. I definitely think that if you were the eldest sibling, that you would really enjoy this book, because both of the characters talk a lot about pressure that they feel from their family, and it's very different pressure because they live very different lifestyles, but it's still kind of like the same, that like eldest child pressure that you feel. I also think that if you're a single parent, you would really enjoy this as well. I just felt like Dolly really represented like such a large scope of women who just like have to do everything by themselves because they don't have another option. If Nora Goes Off Script or Summer Romance is your favorite by her, definitely pick this one up. I really think that you'll like it. Then I read Dial A for Aunties by Jessie Q Sutanto, and I'm sorry you guys, I feel like I have been kind of a hater in this video and I did not love this. I think maybe I had different expectations going in. We're basically following our main character, Meddy. Her aunts and her mom all run like a wedding vendor business, and they're all like a different vendor. So she's the photographer, her mom does the florals, one of them sings, like they all do something different for weddings. The night before, they have this really large, expensive wedding that's like a really life-changing opportunity for their business. She goes on this blind date and the guy ends up dying basically. So she calls her aunties to help her kind of like cover this up. And then we also kind of have this backdrop of this wedding that we also have to be doing because obviously they have jobs. I thought this book was going to be funnier and like sillier than what it was. I felt like the hiding the body aspect was just kind of like, it could have been like if we're gonna have a storyline that's like so outrageous that you're all hiding a body, I thought like more outrageous things were gonna happen, but it was really just like, let's move the body here, let's move the body there, let's move the body here, and like nothing really happened, which I just thought was kind of odd. There's also a lot more romance in this book than I expected. Like the romance didn't really sell to me. I didn't really get it. I think sometimes with like second chance romances, I just find it a hard time to believe that they're so quick to get back together. after they haven't spoken in 5 years. Like, especially when they're young and in their 20s, you change so much from like 22 to 27. So like, you're just telling me that like you can just like up and get back together with who you were with at 22. You were a totally different person at 22. So I just found that to be kind of unbelievable. I don't think I'm going to continue on with this because I feel like the first one is people's fan faves and then they don't typically love the next two. I will say that I loved the wedding setting of this, and it definitely made me want to pick up like another book surrounding by a wedding. And I also loved the like Chinese Indonesian culture of weddings that they added in here. There was so much stuff that like I had no idea about, so I found those parts really interesting, and I really liked the wedding aspect, but the rest of it just really wasn't my favorite. If you've ever seen Revenge of the Bridesmaids, that movie is hilarious and like so outlandish. It doesn't have anything to do with like hiding a dead body, but it's surrounding a wedding and just like a bunch of outlandish things happen, and I was kind of expecting something like that funny, and this I just didn't find to be super comical. Then I read 2 biographies. First one was Nobody's Girl. She is one of the women who was a victim of Jeffrey Epstein and his trafficking ring, and this is the autobiography that was published I think last year, right after she passed away. I don't really know like how to talk about this book because I don't think I would recommend it to everybody. I just feel like the 2 autobiographies that I read this month are not like autobiographies that I would recommend because they're just very heavy. She does such a good job of really writing the book so it's not super heavy. Like, she often adds happier things in between some of the harder to read about things, and I did really appreciate that she was not super graphic in this book. Like, she really only said what needed to be said. Sometimes I feel like when it comes to cases like this, people's curiosity kind of gets the best of them and they want to know more than just like the average person needs to know. If you're interested in this case, I guess it would be considered, I do think that this was a well-written, good book. I'll go on my little like 2-minute rant, but I just feel like with all of the files coming out, people expect really horrific things to be in them. Like, I just feel like I see people on TikTok a lot being like, they were eating babies, they were hunting people in the woods. If that was happening, that's obviously awful, but it's like, I don't need them to show me a file that says they were eating babies or hunting people in the woods. Like, what they did to these women who have said what they have done to them for years, like, is enough to be outraged. What happened to this one girl alone, let alone that it happened to hundreds of women, was enough for us to all be enraged. I don't really know like to say if I would recommend it or not. I am very curious. I literally finished this book and then like 2 days later Prince Andrew was arrested, or whatever his last name is, because he's not a prince anymore. I'm very curious to see what comes of that, if anything. I also kind of have this rule with myself this year that if there's a book that I really want to read, that I have a book that has a similar esque, I need to read the book on my physical TBR first. So for example, like Love of My Afterlife is a romance book that I really want to pick up, and it is like a magical realism romance book, and I'm like, okay, read your magical realism romance book on your TBR first because you like have that on your physical TBR. And I totally forgot that I already had an autobiography by a survivor on my TBR. I bought this years and years and years ago. This is Silence No More by Sarah Ransom, who is also a survivor of this case. And I will say that this one is definitely a little more blunt with how she goes about talking about what happened to her, which I think, like, I'm not saying that I don't think that they should say nitty-gritty of what happened to them. I definitely think it should be up to the victim, like, what they want to share publicly. I will just say that, like, if you don't want to hear graphic things, I would pick up Virginia's over this one because this one just is a little bit more graphic. This one also has a lot of discussion about body shaming. Beware of that as well. Again, I just feel like I have a very similar thing to say about this one that I do Virginia's. Like, I just feel like what happened to her was enough, and like, I didn't need all of these Epstein files like to be released to be upset about it or to feel like these people need to be prosecuted. I mean, I think this book was published like right after 2020. It was published in 2021. So it's like they've been saying this way before 2021, like what happened to them. And I just feel like now, not that people weren't outraged before, but people are like pulling up the most graphic FBI tips that they were given and saying about how bad it was. It's like, was what happened to these women like not bad enough? But yeah, so this was the other autobiography that I read this month. Again, like I don't want to say I would recommend them just because they are extremely heavy topics. I do think that if you want to consume information about this case, that it's, in my opinion, more ethical to hear about it from the victims and to support them financially by buying their books, or their families financially by buying their books, than to watch like some random YouTuber do a story on it or watch like a podcast on it. I do definitely think if you want to consume information on it, that the survivors are telling their stories and you can just listen to them. My favorites were definitely Dolly All the Time, The Paper Palace, and The 7-Year Slip. I also really liked Rock, Paper, Scissors, but like thrillers, I just don't think I'm ever going to be a person that like a thriller is like a 5-star for me, just because I don't think I'm like the biggest thriller fan. Like I just read them for like something quick and easy. I feel like I had a pretty good reading month this month compared to last month. If you're curious on what I read last month, I didn't do an official wrap up. I actually did it in my monthly reset. But since I've been reading so many books, I just decided that they can have their own video because they will be long enough. But let me know what book was your favorite in February. I'm always looking for new recommendations and I have been in such a reading mood. So I just love hearing people talk about like their favorite books. That is all I have for you guys today. So thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end of the video, please let me know because that always makes me so happy. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, you guys.